Hello. Today I wanted to put a little more detail into how people will feed themselves on a far future terraformed Mars, and talk about ecology as well as the food production system. Growing crops in cold countries is limited to the short summer. However, Mars, with its larger orbit and longer year, will have longer summers. This gives farmers a better chance of feeding the population even in a very cold climate. I think Mars will be cold, partly because of its distance from the sun, but also partly because terraforming the planet will cost a lot of money. Each degree of warming will be very expensive. Depending on its eventual terraformed temperatures, Mars may have an equatorial corn belt or a better chance of growing food near the equator, but fruit may be easier as trees are more resistant to cold weather and don't need replanting each year. Therefore, there may be extensive orchards and fields full of gooseberries and currants, probably with honeybee hives which would provide pollination services and honey for human consumption. On Earth we can buy foods grown in tropical countries, but that wouldn't be available on Mars. Instead, greenhouses would be very important for growing tender, warm climate plants not tolerant of Mars's normal cold temperatures. In places where there are caves and lava tubes, mushrooms might be grown as an additional food supply for the colonists. Harvesting natural products from nature may be more important than farming as a means of feeding the population. It would be easier than farming and would produce food even in environments where we couldn't farm. For example, where the soil is too thin, the temperatures are too cold, the light's too dim, the soil is too toxic, or the slope is too steep. This means that nature would have to work optimally and efficiently to provide and to produce an excess that could be used by people. Ultimately, it will be about converting a set of chemicals that we can't eat into a set that we can eat. Colder forests in both hemispheres will be mostly composed of cold-tolerant conifers, though closer to the equator, broad-leaved trees like beech will predominate. In the Serengeti in Africa, elephants both destroy and plant forests. They push trees down to get at their nutritious leaves and fruit, and they plant new trees by depositing seeds in their dung. Animals which could do this on a terraformed Mars would be just as important. These might include de-extinct mammoths, but mammoths may have been grass eaters rather than leaf eaters. Browsers would certainly include forest animals like wood bison, moose and forest caribou, but others might also be needed to be found. The presence of large browsers and their tree-destroying activity would reduce the fire risk. This may be more severe in the southern hemisphere on Mars because of its distance from the Northern Ocean and probably lower rainfall. Ensuring that there are large areas of grassland would prevent fire spreading and allow grazing animals to exist in large numbers. Colonists might be tempted to prevent the introduction of predators to Mars, but predators do a number of really important things to help provide us with food. Firstly, predators like wolves prevent browsers such as elk from staying in one place and destroying vegetation. This means that beavers can dam the rivers, preventing flooding and drought and making homes for fish such as perch and trout. Secondly, they control the number of deer and prevent the spread of disease. Smaller predators like wolverines, coyotes, badgers and lynx perform similar functions over their own prey species, preventing overbrowsing and disease. Additionally, super top-level predators like snow leopards and Siberian tigers would keep a control on the wolf population and reduce the chance of them killing farm animals or threatening people. Mars would not be a nature reserve, but rather it would be a natural ecosystem which would provide an excess for human use. This might mean trees for building, willow for basket making, or elk for the dinner table. Humans would be able to hunt provided they didn't disturb the natural balance of the ecosystem, risking local extinctions and potential damage to the food supply system. In a planet full of wildlife, animals may occasionally need to be moved or culled where they cause problems for the colonists, but again, the natural balance of nature would need to be maintained so that an excess was available. There remains a risk that critical species will no longer exist due to human population rise and climate change when they're needed on Mars. This means that some would need to be kept in zoos or wildlife parks. As well as the larger species, this extinction risk also applies to microorganisms and other soil-like like earthworms and protozoa. I think this is probably the biggest risk to terraforming, the loss of critical chemical modulators, if you like, turning one group of chemicals that we couldn't eat into another group that we can, and trying to make sure they're still there when we need them is going to be really tough, because we've got potentially 1,000 or more years between now and then. But there we go. Anyway, thanks for watching.